the West just got wilder. We got to talk about what happened earlier this week. When Kyle and I, before I hit record, I was like, man, the draft lottery, so much has happened between the draft lottery and now that it doesn't feel like it was this week. But Monday of this week, I'm going to go back and look and see exactly what I text you during the draft lottery. But for those of you who don't know or didn't see our NBA soundbite already, the Dallas Mavericks, with a 1.8% chance to win the number one overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, they're going to take Cooper Flagg. They're going to pair him with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, obviously when Kyrie is back from the ACL injury. Everybody's asking me, and look, I cover the NBA. I don't work for the NBA. Is it rigged? Don't you think it's fishy? I don't think it's fishy. I don't know. But man, I will say, if you were going to go for some type of narrative, how about the team who was a part of the biggest trade in NBA history, 3.5 months later, jump up 10 spots in the lottery, which is the biggest lottery jump in NBA history? I don't even know, man. It's crazy. Cooper Flagg, Maverick.
Can we put our tinfoil hats on for a second? Like,
put it on.
Because I've been having a lot of those conversations. Actually, I think I'm the same hat size. So no, 7 3/8, 7 3/8. But all right, so I got my 7 3/8 tinfoil hat on. But I mean, I'm sure same as you. A lot of my friends have been texting me the same thing, and they're like, is this rigged? In like, on one hand, it's like we know for a fact that there are media members and front office executives for every team that is represented in the lottery in that room when the balls are drawn. So it's like, on one hand, how could it be rigged? But then you have the other side of it where it's like, LeBron went to Cleveland. Yes, they had the worst record in the lottery that year, but Cleveland kid stays home, goes to Cleveland. You have 2 times that New Orleans has traded away a star and got rewarded with the number 1 pick. You have Derrick Rose, the year that Chicago gets the number 1 overall pick, the Chicago kid stays home.
1.9% odds that year, by the way.
1.9% odds that year and gets drafted first overall. And then you have the Mavericks, who Luka Doncic, one of the biggest trades in NBA history, and they are just getting shit thrown at them from every single direction all season long, ends up with the number 1 pick. Now, like, you take the tinfoil hat off and it's like, and someone cracked a joke about this on Twitter. It's like, yeah, the NBA is so rigged. Like, they had to work in like the textbook, like Kyrie Irving tears his ACL in order for the Mavericks to be able to be in this position in the first place. And it's like, okay, that's when you kind of like, you do take the tinfoil hat off and you're like, okay, how could it be rigged? You know what I mean? But it also just feels like there's too many coincidences. I don't know. Like, where do you stand? Genuinely, I don't know.
It's because I've heard people say, man, I felt these ping pong balls there. It's hard to weight one differently. There's a guy who's got his back turned toward, and this is definitely worthy of its own show, because we're not going to get into the inner workings of the draft lottery, but based on, it's an actual lottery. And my understanding of it is, right, like, there's 1,000 combinations, and the 1.8% chance means you have 18 of those combinations is when you win. And there was a 1.8% chance. Obviously, this is probably probability and statistics for all of you out there who thought you were done with school. But to think about it that way, it does think about, man, how much fate and luck does have to go in the bounces of a couple balls with people making these decisions who have no care at all about what happens in the NBA. I don't think, I'm sure maybe some of the people at Ernst & Young are basketball fans, but ultimately they don't care about a damn narrative. They're just like, man, let me do my job. Let me do it securely. And it just would be like a big, like, Ocean's 11 type heist that you'd have to pull off to rig. And maybe that's the next movie. I know they tried it with the NBA Cup stuff. Maybe we have, like, the rigging the draft lottery movie that we go in to get. And maybe this comes out starring Nico Harrison in like 5 or 10 years. I had to go back and look. Our text messages, I can't repeat all of them. I text you OMG, OMG when the top 4 was announced. And then WTF, man. After the Mavericks won, and you said hard to beat the rigged allegations. So yeah, we were. I mean, that's where your mind goes. Like, to think that, like, if you asked me, the lottery is at 7 p.m. If you said, hey man, what is the most rigged outcome of this? Both of us would have said the Mavericks winning 100%.
Well, it's not only that, like, you and I were talking about it earlier in the day. And I was like, if there was a rigged power rankings, it would be the Mavs and then the Sixers and then the Spurs. And that ended up being 3 of the 4 teams. And of course, the 4th is the poor Charlotte Hornets who end up with the 4th pick.
Yep.
So it's like, seriously, if anybody were to rank the teams in order of how the most rigged to least rigged, it would actually be 3 of the 4 teams that had a chance at the number 1 pick. So Yeah, I don't know, man. It's wild. I don't know if you happen to see this, but I guess the NHL draft lottery this year, for the first time, they like kept the camera on even like during commercial breaks and stuff, like kept the camera on the ping pong balls. Like maybe that's the next step for the NBA if they really want to beat the allegations. But then again, if you pull it live, well, you can't rig it. So like, if that's what you've been doing to make sure this stuff happens, I don't know. It's like, I've never been so like mentally challenged by something in my entire life when my friends are texting me and they're like asking like, is it like, I think it's rigged. Is it? I'm like, well, I don't think it is, but also like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's a hard argument to make at this point.
Right. It is.
I don't want to hear a lot.
It's hard to argue against. It's hard to argue against, but from a basketball standpoint, like getting back to the basketball aspect of it, like, man, that's a terrifying lineup. Like Kyrie is supposed to be back January, February, whatever it is from an ACL injury, with Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg at the 3, AD at the 4, and then Gafford or Lively at the 5. Like that's a championship caliber team. And Cooper Flagg, like from the way that I expect, it is the best possible scenario for him, for the way that I expect his game to grow in the NBA, which is, you and I talked about this in the pod leading up to March Madness. Like defense is his strongest part of his game right now, and he's growing as a shot creator, he's growing as a shot maker, things like that. He is going to be in a prime position to go out there and defend first and then be a scoring option second. And he's going to learn from AD, he's going to learn from Kyrie, he's going to learn from Klay, different little tricks of the trade to get better at scoring and getting to his spots on the floor. And it's really like, I haven't put a ton of thought into like the on-court fit, but it's scary to think about how good the Mavs are going to be. And then on the flip side of that, you look at the Spurs who get the number 2 pick. And I know that there have been some reports that are coming out that they are like locked in on Dylan Harper, but you have to remember, there is a lot of smoke screens that get thrown out there around this time of year, because the Spurs probably know that everybody wants Dylan Harper, that fell in line behind them in the lottery. So you say, hey, we are locked in on Dylan Harper. Well, that's when you get people that are calling to try and make a trade up. But
how locked in are you?
Well, and that's the thing. The team that got the number 2 pick is also one of the teams that's expected to be, high on the list of teams calling Milwaukee to try and get Giannis. Yep. So yes, the Mavs won the lottery and they win the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes, and that is crazy. But it almost feels like a giant footnote that the Spurs ended up with the 2nd pick and now have even more ammo to go and get a potential player like Giannis because they were fortunate enough to get the 2nd pick.
Yeah, 100%. That was the last thing. We'll get back to the teams that are still playing, but I said not for nothing, man. Like Spurs just casually got the number 2 pick. And I remember texting it after all the dust settled and everything we talked about with the Mavs and their heist and everything we can talk about, which we'll talk much more about that when we get close to the draft and everything like that, when stuff starts to die down with this current playoff run here. But yeah, seeing what happens with that number 2 pick, whether it's Dylan Harper, whether it's a trade where they just dangle that. And the Spurs have a lot of options. And we know that El Jefe, Greg Popovich, is running it, and he's not going to get fleeced by any other team. So if anybody could figure it out, again, if they're able to land Giannis, we're talking championship contender, whatever it is, Spurs are in a great position, and they just keep getting luck on their side as well. And the last thing I'll say, the Hornets, I did see something that based on the way the odds were, there was like a less than like 2% chance that the Hornets stayed at 4. So for all they could thank their lucky stars, even though they fell to 4, they still are in the top 4, and you would feel really bad if you're Utah falling down to 5 or Washington falling down to 6. So could be much worse. Thanks for checking out NBA Soundsystem Canada on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe below and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have weekly episodes and bonus content throughout the week.